Welcome. This is going to be my first studio blog that I'm doing in my studio, and I don't get to spend as much time in here as I would like to, and that's for various reasons. I work part-time in a museum, I'm a mom, and it's busy. It's a busy life, but my first passion in life is my art, and I try to spend as much time in my studio as I can. And you know, the life of an artist when you're trying to establish yourself is not easy, but it's something that you just have to work with and do your best to get the amount of time that you can. You're gonna see some different parts of my practice today. You're going to see some different parts of my studio, and I plan to do these studio blogs hopefully at least once a month, maybe more. It all depends on how much time I actually get to spend in here. Again, it's not as much as I'd like, but it happens, and I'm here today, and I'm just going to focus on the positive, which is that I'm here today. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you again in a minute. So what I'm working on here is a mixed media quilt, and that's the work that I make. So I usually do sometimes piecing, so that means sewing different pieces of fabric together. Sometimes I do applique, which means layering fabric on top of each other, usually with some sort of a bonding substrate in between that will connect them through using an iron, so it like connects two pieces of fabric together and bonds them with the heat of the iron. I also do painting, and sometimes I do photo transfer, so it really depends on the piece. And in this case, this piece has got paint and drawing and stitch, so I usually do some embroidery. You can hear my sons next door. They're singing, and that's part of being a parent artist whose studio is in your home. Your kids are right there beside you through a lot of what you're doing, and it's possible they can come and interrupt you if they need something. And I've gotten really used to working with interruptions, so it doesn't even really bother me that much anymore. It's just part of the process of working at home. And so this layering process is really the first layer of the quilt. Quilts have 3 layers, and this is the top. There'll be a layer of batting in the middle, and then there'll be a back piece. And the stitching is the final phase for me, and I do a lot of that by hand. A lot of quilters use machines for their quilting, the whole quilt. I'm not really like that. I mostly do by hand, and that's just because of a lot of different reasons, but mostly I just have a preference for that feeling of working with something by hand and interacting with it, holding it, bringing it with me to different places and working on it. For instance, I was working on this piece at the beach this summer when we were on vacation, so my work is really portable, and that's something I like about it. When I'm doing the painting phases, it's not portable. I have to be in the studio, so I was waiting to get home and get some studio time in order to get this sky finished the way I wanted it to be, so that I could move on to finishing up the stitching over the mountains and the rocks, and then after that I will be quilting it. It has to be done for November. This piece is going to be submitted for a show sponsored by Studio Art Quilt Associates, and that is an association that I belong to of art quilters, and they put on some beautiful shows all over the world. And so this show will be debuting in 2019 in San Jose, California. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next little bit. So, as you can see from my hands, I have finished. I just put a little shot in of the finished sky, and I don't know if it's totally finished yet. I have to let it dry, so I use a lot of water when I'm painting on fabric, so it takes a while for that to dry, and then I'll look at it and see if the colors still look as vibrant once it's dry as they do now. And you can tell that the light is changing. So I've been in here for about 2 hours, I think. It's time for lunch. I'm gonna make some lunch for myself and the boys, and it's gonna be really hot. It's really hot here right now. It's like probably in the high 20s, low 30s, I don't know. There's humidity as well, which is rare for the coast. I live on the west coast of Canada, and it's rare for humidity to be here, but it is the heat of summer. We've also got smoke from forest fires that is in the air. So it's a hot day. So I probably will not spend much time in the studio this afternoon. I'll probably do some other things, and then I will come back into the studio and check on this in a few hours. I might actually also set up a fan to dry it, and I will resume in a bit. So I'm not sure what more I'm going to show you today. I'm just gonna see what the day unfolds, because I think, you know, it's important to show the whole part of the day, not just what I'm doing in the studio, but also eating and being and existing and all those other things that I do. So I'll be back in a bit. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the effect that I gave. I know it's really hard. The thing about painting on fabric is you can see all those little crinkles and things like that at this stage, so you kind of have to look beyond that, and I can tell that despite those little crinkles, the overall effect is what I was going for with the sky. So I think I am gonna leave it at that and do the rest with stitching. And this is, you know, this is a work in progress, so you can tell here that it doesn't look finished, and it's very far from finished, and it'll look a lot different once I'm done with it. But this is an important stage. It is really coming together. This bottom part is going to look more like rock, and then you have the sea part and the mountains and the sky. I think what I am going to do is just put a little bit more gray paint on the mountains and along the seam that is joining the sea to the mountains there. And then I think the paint will be finished and I will just go on to gray stitching for this evening. So it's the end of the day now. It was very hot this afternoon. I did get a bit more work done on the mountains. I did some stitching on them, and I'll probably do a bit more before bedtime. And I just wanted to say goodnight, and this concludes my studio day. Probably didn't work as consistently in here as I could have today, but again, the temperature being hot, and I did have other things that I had to get done. So, but I'm glad I got what I did get done in here, and some cleaning as well in here, which is always good. So I'll talk to you next time.